My name's
Ladies
Ryan.
and gentlemen, welcome
I'm
to the most
28,
insane
and last
mega
weekend
ramp
was
in
supposed to be one
GTA
of the
5
best
history.
days of my
I'm
life.
talking sky-high
After years
stunts,
of working two
zero
jobs,
gravity
eating
jumps,
instant
and
noodles,
crashes
and
so
living in a
wild.
cramped apartment
Buckle
with
up
paper-thin
because this
walls,
ride's gonna
I
be
finally bought my
absolute
first
chaos.
house. Nothing huge or fancy, a modest 3-bedroom with a little backyard and a creaky porch swing. But to me, it was perfect. It was mine. I spent Friday night cleaning, arranging furniture, even stringing up cheap fairy lights in the living room. There was this giddy excitement in my chest as I pictured my parents walking in and smiling, my younger brother cracking jokes, my cousins exploring all the rooms. For once, I thought we'd be together for something I accomplished. My brother Matt is 26. He's the golden child. No other way to put it. Growing up, he got the praise, the new clothes, the trophies displayed in the living room. I was the quiet one who fixed things around the house. When Matt got a promotion, the whole family went out to dinner. When I graduated college, my parents sent a congrats text with a thumbs up emoji. The morning of the party, I woke up early, practically buzzing. I set out drinks, made sure there were enough chairs, even bought a cake that said, "Welcome home Ryan" in blue icing. I sent a group text reminder, "Hey everyone, housewarming starts at 5, can't wait to see you." My phone stayed quiet except for a single thumbs up from my cousin Sarah. 5 o'clock rolled around, the lights were on, music playing softly. I stood by the front window waiting for the first car. By 5:30, no one had come. By 6, I was pacing, checking my phone every 30 seconds. Finally, I opened Instagram out of boredom, and that's when I saw it. My entire family was tagged in a photo standing in my parents' driveway, grinning ear to ear in front of Matt's brand new car. A shiny black luxury SUV with a giant red bow on top. Mom's caption read, "So proud of you, Matt. You deserve this." My stomach dropped. I stared at the screen, then set my phone down and sat at the kitchen table staring at the untouched cake. The house felt unbearably quiet, the fairy lights suddenly looking silly and sad. I didn't cry. I just sat there and let the disappointment settle in like a heavy blanket. Around 7:15, just as I was about to pack up the food, my phone lit up with Mom's name. I hesitated, then picked up. "Ryan," she said without even a hello, "we need to talk about the house." Her tone wasn't congratulatory. It was serious, clipped. "What about it?" "We think it would make sense if Matt stayed there during the week. You just bought it, sure, but his job is closer to that area. You wouldn't even notice. He'd just sleep there, maybe keep some clothes in one of the rooms. It's only fair to help him out considering how expensive his car was." I didn't say anything at first. My fingers dug into the edge of the table. "Mom," I finally said slowly, "this is my house." "And we're proud of you," she replied quickly. "But family helps each other. Don't be selfish about this." I swallowed hard, feeling anger and disbelief simmering. "We'll talk later," I said and hung up. I sat there for a long time, staring at the empty doorway. They'd skipped my housewarming to celebrate my brother, and now they wanted the house too. That's when I decided something. I didn't say it yet, but something inside me was shifting, hardening. If they thought this was going to be easy, they had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I woke up to 6 unread messages in the family group chat. Mom, "Ryan, we really need to discuss Matt using the house." Dad, "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Then Matt himself, "Hey bro, Mom said you're being weird about this. Chill. It's just a couple nights a week. I'll bring my own food." Just a couple nights a week. That word "just" made me want to laugh bitterly. By noon, Mom called again. I let it ring, but she immediately followed with a voicemail, her voice sweet and rehearsed. "Ryan, honey, we just want what's best for everyone. Matt has so much pressure right now. He needs support. We're counting on you to do the right thing." That afternoon, I drove to my parents' house. When I pulled up, Matt's new car was in the driveway, gleaming. Mom answered, looking pleasantly surprised. Ryan, finally. Come in. Let's talk about the house. I stepped inside. Dad was in his recliner. Matt was on the couch, grinning like this was all some joke. So, Mom began. We've been thinking. You mean you've been deciding? I interrupted, voice calm but flat. She blinked. Deciding. You already told Matt he could stay there, didn't you? Matt shrugged. Well, yeah. I figured you'd be fine with it. That was the moment something clicked. They'd already made the decision for me. You can't just decide that, I said slowly. This is my home. You don't get to hand it out. Mom's smile faltered. Ryan, we're not trying to take anything. This is family. You have a responsibility. I've been looking out for everyone for years, I said, voice rising slightly. I helped pay for Matt's tuition. I loaned him money when he wrecked his car. At what point do I get to have something that's just mine? The room went quiet. Dad finally looked up. Don't take that tone with your mother. By taking my house? I shot back. Matt rolled his eyes. You're being dramatic. I'm not asking for a key to the safe, just a place to crash. The manipulation was so obvious, it almost made me laugh.
Bullshit.
I'm not agreeing to anything today, I said, standing up. I need time to think. Mom stood too, looking frustrated. If you keep dragging this out, Matt will have to spend money on a rental. I didn't say anything else. I just left. That night, I got a message from my aunt. Don't be selfish. Matt really needs the help. Mom must have called half the family. Suddenly, I wasn't just dealing with my immediate family. I was being painted as the villain to everyone. The next day, Dad showed up at my house unannounced. You need to stop making this so hard, he said. Your brother has always been there for you. I almost laughed. Always been there? When? When I worked double shifts so he could borrow money for spring break? Dad's face tightened. You're keeping score now. That's not what family does. I stood, anger boiling over. No, Dad. What family doesn't do is take advantage of one kid to make life easier for the other. He muttered something about me being ungrateful and left.
No.
For the next few days, messages kept coming. Guilt trips, little digs, subtle threats. By the end of the week, I'd stopped replying entirely. But I wasn't just sitting in silence. Every night, I'd sit at my kitchen table with a notepad thinking, if they were willing to push this hard before Matt had even stayed a single night, what would happen if I gave in? No, I wasn't going to let that happen. One Friday, I got a text from Mom. We're coming by tomorrow to talk. Be home. That time was coming sooner than I thought. I closed my phone, took a deep breath, and looked around. The house that was mine. For the first time in days, I felt something sharper than sadness. Resolve. Saturday morning came. Around 10 a.m., a car door slammed. My parents were walking up the path. Matt was trailing behind with a duffel bag over his shoulder. I opened the door before they could knock. Mom brushed past me. Dad followed, looking grim. Matt walked in last, glancing around. Nice place, he said casually, setting the duffel bag down by the couch. I frowned. What's that? My stuff, he replied with a shrug. Thought I'd save us time since we already know how this is going to go. My blood ran cold. They hadn't come to talk. They'd come to move him in. Mom turned to me, clasping her hands. Ryan, we've thought about this. It just makes sense. Why wouldn't we make use of extra space? Because it's my house and you didn't ask. Dad sighed, already impatient. Son, this is practical. Stop being stubborn. Matt flopped onto the couch, pulling out his phone. I don't get why you're making this a big deal. You'll barely notice I'm here. I stared at him, then at the duffel bag. The sheer audacity hit me all at once. No, I said finally, voice firm. Mom blinked. No, Matt's not staying here. Not for a night, not at all. For a second, there was silence. Then Mom's expression hardened. Ryan, don't be ridiculous. We drove all the way here. You're not going to embarrass us. You showed up with his bags without my permission. You're the ones making a scene. Matt looked up, smirking. Wow, someone's touchy. You really think this house makes you the boss now? That was the last straw. Get your stuff and leave, I said quietly, hands shaking. Mom gasped. Ryan, you are not kicking your brother out. Yes, I am. This is my house, not yours. You don't get to decide who lives here. Dad stood, towering over me. Watch your tone. I laughed, short, humorless. You raised me to put everyone else first. Not this time. The room went silent, except for the clock ticking. Fine, Mom said after a pause, voice cold. If that's how you want it, we'll do this the hard way. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folder, dropping it on my counter with a loud slap. What is this? I asked, opening it. My stomach sank. It was a listing for my house, complete with mortgage details, property value, tax information. We've spoken to a lawyer, Mom said matter-of-factly. You're not married? No kids. This house is wasted space. We think it's in the family's best interest if Matt eventually buys it from you. I stared at her, stunned. You want me to sell you my house? Not sell, transfer, Dad corrected. We'd work out an arrangement. It was like the air had been sucked out. This is insane, I said finally. You skipped my housewarming to celebrate Matt's car, and now you're trying to take my house. Mom crossed her arms. Stop acting like a victim. You should be happy you can help your family. Matt leaned back, smirking. Honestly, bro, you're overreacting. You'll be fine. I felt something snap. Not anger. Cold, crystal clear resolve. Get out, I said, voice low. There was a long pause, but something in my tone got through because Dad finally grabbed Matt's bag and shoved it toward him. This isn't over, Dad said as they headed for the door. I didn't answer. I just stood there, fists clenched, watching them leave. When the door closed, I let out a shaky breath. If they were willing to go this far, I needed to think 3 steps ahead. I wasn't just going to say no. I was going to make sure they never tried anything like this again. Over the next few days, the silence from my family wasn't peaceful. It was loaded. Words started trickling in through relatives.
Crap.
You really upset your parents. Why are you being so hard on Matt? I stopped responding. I muted the family group chat entirely. One night after work, I sat on the back porch with a beer, letting myself really feel everything. The sadness, the anger, the exhaustion. I'd spent years being the good son, and now, the first time I drew a line, they made me the villain. That was the night I decided to stop waiting for an apology that was never coming. The next morning, I started locking everything down, literally and figuratively. I changed the locks. I updated the alarm system. I started keeping my car in the garage. I also pulled back from the family. I stopped showing up for Sunday dinners. When Mom called, I let it go to voicemail. At work, I threw myself into projects. Staying late wasn't a burden. It was an escape. One Saturday, I drove out to a quiet trail and sat overlooking a stream. I scrolled through old photos and noticed how many moments I'd been the one behind the camera. There were hardly any photos of me. I'd been present for everyone else's big moments. But when it came time for mine, they couldn't even show up. By the time I walked back, something had solidified. I wasn't going to fight for scraps of respect anymore. That night, I sat down with a notepad. I made a list of everything I needed to do, financially, legally, emotionally, to make sure no one could take this house from me. I looked up lawyers. I researched putting my house into a trust. I checked property laws. And as I sat there making plans, I felt something I hadn't felt since before this started. Control. The first step was talking to a lawyer. Her name was Allison, and she made me feel like I was finally on solid ground. Your name is the only one on the title, she said. No one has any claim. But if you're worried, we can put the house into a living trust in your name. I left with a folder full of documents and a checklist of steps. At work, things were shifting too. My boss noticed my extra effort and offered me a chance to lead a client presentation. The day of the meeting, I walked in and delivered the pitch with calm confidence. By the end, the client was nodding enthusiastically. That afternoon, my boss said, "If we land this contract, you'll be in line for a raise." It wasn't just the money, it was the validation. My social circle began to grow again. A co-worker invited me to a barbecue. I showed up with a six-pack and found myself laughing by the end of the night. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was living in Matt's shadow. One Friday evening, I bought paint and spent the weekend repainting my living room a soft, warm blue. I hung new lights, rearranged furniture, put up a framed photo from my hiking trip. Standing there with paint on my hands, I felt something shift. This wasn't just a house anymore. It was my home. I met with a banker to set up a separate savings account. I started automating transfers every payday, quietly building a cushion. One evening while eating dinner, I saw a new post from my cousin, a photo of Matt at a fancy restaurant. The caption, "Celebrating a big move." My stomach tightened. I knew that grin. Sure enough, the next morning, I got a message from Dad. "We need to talk. Call me." I didn't call. Instead, I went back to my list. I called Allison and told her I wanted to go through with the living trust. When I walked out of her office, my house was legally shielded. Driving home with the sun setting, I felt something I hadn't felt since before this started. Peace. But it wasn't just peace, it was power. The following week, the client signed the contract and I got my raise. I took myself out to dinner alone, thinking about how far I'd come. 2 days later, I was coming back from a run when I saw my parents' car parked near my street. Instead of turning around, I walked straight up. "We were in the neighborhood," Mom said casually. "No, you weren't. What do you want?" "We wanted to talk about Matt. He's been looking for an apartment, but it's expensive." Dad added, "This is just logical. Logical for you, not for me." Mom's tone sharpened. "You can't keep punishing your brother." I realized they still didn't get it. In their minds, I was the one causing harm. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm just living in the house I bought. Mom sighed dramatically. "We've been talking with your uncle. He thinks it would be smart to see if the deed can be restructured." I stared at her. They were still trying to take it. This time, I didn't panic. I just smiled, a small, calm smile. "Good luck with that," I said, and went inside. When I shut the door, I felt satisfaction. The house was in a trust. They couldn't touch it. A week later, my boss offered me a chance to attend a leadership retreat, all expenses paid, 3 days at a lakeside resort. I almost turned it down, but then I thought about the duffel bag and Matt's smirk. I said yes. During one session, a speaker talked about boundaries. If you don't define the terms, someone else will. That line hit me like a freight train. On the last night, I stayed up by the fire pit, writing what I wanted my life to look like 6 months from now. This wasn't just about keeping my house. This was about taking control of my entire life. When I got home, I hired a security company to install cameras. I joined a homeowners association. Then something unexpected happened. A friend mentioned that Matt had been bragging about a promotion, but also that he'd been spending recklessly and might be in over his head. That piece of information clicked into place. Matt wasn't just looking for convenience. He needed it because he was struggling. Suddenly, I didn't just have defense. I had leverage. The moment came on a quiet Sunday. Mom called. "We've been talking. We think it's time to revisit the house conversation. Can we stop by tonight?" "Sure," I said calmly. "Come by at 6. I made sure the cameras were recording. I set out 2 chairs. I even brewed coffee. By 6 hours, I was ready. When they arrived, I gestured them inside. Mom smiled like this was reconciliation. She launched into the speech about how Matt was struggling, how family makes sacrifices. I let her go on, nodding occasionally. When she finished, I leaned forward. "I've been thinking about what you said, which is why I wanted you both here. I slid a folder across the table. Inside were the trust documents, notarized agreements, and a notice stating no one was allowed on the property without my consent. Mom's smile faltered. "What is this?" "Legal protection. This house is in a trust, which means it can't be sold, transferred, or used without my approval. And I filed a notice of no trespass." Dad's jaw tightened. "You went to a lawyer?" "Yes, I took your advice. Think about the future. This is what's best for me." Long silence. "You're making a mistake," Dad said. I smiled faintly. "Then maybe you should have treated me like family before trying to take what I worked for." Then I played my final card. "I know about Matt's situation, the car payments, the credit card debt, the fact he can't afford his own place. That's not my problem." Mom's mouth opened, shocked that I knew. "I've been paying attention, and I've documented everything, every message, every visit." I gestured to the camera blinking softly on the counter. "I have this conversation recorded too, so if you ever pressure me again, I'll have proof." I stood. "I'm not doing this to hurt you. I'm doing it because I need boundaries. If you can respect them, great. If not, I'll enforce them." Neither answered. They left minutes later. As their car pulled out, I felt my shoulders relax for the first time in months. I locked the door, poured myself coffee, and sat at the table. The silence didn't feel oppressive. It felt like freedom. The next few days were oddly quiet. Then one Friday, I got a message from Matt. "You win. Hope you're happy. Lost the car. Might be moving back home." I didn't reply. A few hours later, Dad called. "Your mother and I wanted to let you know Matt had to return the SUV. He's staying with us for a while." There it was. The acknowledgement that their plan had failed. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said evenly. Long pause. Then Dad sighed. "Ryan, we might have gone too far. We should have respected that this house is yours." For a long moment, I didn't speak. "I hope so, because if you ever try something like that again, you know what will happen." "We know." The next weekend, Mom called and asked if she could come by alone. She arrived with homemade cookies. We sat at the kitchen table, and for the first time in months, we actually talked. "I pushed too hard," she admitted. "We forgot you're not just part of this family. You're your own person too. That's all I've ever wanted you to see." She reached across, placing her hand over mine. "I see it now, and I'm proud of you." Something in my chest loosened. A week later, I hosted a second housewarming, just for friends from work and neighbors. The house was full of laughter, music, good food. No guilt, no tension. As I stood in the kitchen looking out at people smiling in my living room, I realized something. This was what a home was supposed to feel like. Later that night, when everyone had gone, I stepped onto the porch. The sky was clear, stars bright. I thought about the months of tension, the fights, the hidden tears, and I smiled. "They thought they could take my house," I murmured. "Turns out all they did was teach me how to protect it." I turned off the porch light and went inside, not to shut the world out, but to finally, fully live in the home that was mine.